The third return of Israel or the Jews to the Promised Land. I think you already noticed that and emphasized that, and I want to emphasize it even more now here in this last message, that God does deal differently. First time, when he came the first time, they came out and God supernaturally intervened on behalf of Israel, rather visibly, so that the people were afraid. I mean, they were shaken. And then the second return from Babylon, there was no supernatural miracles in comparison with the first Exodus. But God inspired a king, a world ruler. And this world ruler gave command for the people to go. Now, the third return, he withdrew himself even more. And instead of using Christians or believing Jews, he used atheists. He used the communists, who had the strongest part in supporting the creation of the state of Israel. We already heard Victor, I forget your name. Victor, we heard him say, the overwhelming majority, or the 50%, wherever you go, they're Russians. And the joke was, last time I was in Israel, they said, what? One immigrant talks to the other, a Russian immigrant talks to another immigrant, and he says, what? You are 8 months in Israel and don't speak Russian? So that's how God uses. And, also the result, when the first time they came, everything was there. The land of milk and honey. They were eating the fruits of the trees. They were enjoying they don't have bacon and eggs. They have no bacon that time, I guess. But they were enjoying the food. The refrigerator was full. Where they stocked the animals were. They had everything. Didn't have to do nothing. Wells were dig, fresh water, just pull it up. That used to be old time running water. You took a bucket and run. Today you have to, we are spoiled rotten. My mama had to do that, yeah. So, the second time when they came, the land was desert. But they had foreign aid from the king of Persia, from Babylon. And they had plenty of money too. But as I talked to you yesterday, they made a mistake. Instead of building the temple and continued to build the temple, they built the houses and the walls. Shouldn't have done that. Keep doing, and that is our task. Now, in the third time here, they come back to a devastated land, and some of the preachers already emphasized it historically what has happened, and there was nothing there. And then worst of all, they were surrounded by enemies, and they had no weapons. They had no IDF, Israeli Defense Forces. They had no soldiers. They were only trained very primitively underground because they were not permitted to have weapons. The British ruled the country. But God does anyhow, he brings them back. And it's what I always like, and I have circled that in my Bible, and that is the I will. Zephaniah 3 verse 20. And at that time, I will bring you again. Even in that time that I gather you. For I will make you a name and a praise among all the people of the earth. When I turn your captivity before the eyes, saith the Lord. It's the Lord is doing that. Although they may not acknowledge it, but the Lord is doing it. He is turning back the whole world. He is turning back the Jews. But see, this is not fulfilled yet. Israel is not a praise among all the people. Among those who are in the technology field, yeah, Israel has become a praise already. Wow. The American companies, they go in there and buy them by the dozens. The Germans, the French, the Japanese, they come and buy these startup companies. With high-tech companies, they're buying them off. And Israel creates more and more and more and more. So they're already the beginning of the praise for the people. Oh, wow, what's the name? Intel. Intel is in Israel. Who else? There's a whole bunch of American companies and French companies and German companies. They are there already. And they see this is the fertile soil to have people who have the brain to think for the future and to create stuff that the whole world wants. But there's more to come. Oh, there's a lot more to come. Oh, yeah. So let's ask the question, how did that happen? You know, if God did not miraculously intervene and told the Jews, hey, get back to the land, how did he do? But very slowly. Let's look at the book of Ezekiel, Ezekiel 36, and I read from verse 11. And I will multiply upon you man and beast, and they shall increase and bring fruit. And I will settle you after your old estate, and will do better unto you than at your beginnings. And ye shall know that I am the Lord. God is going to do that. And it's interesting, when you read that chapter, he speaks first of all not to the people, but he speaks to the topographical area, to the mountains, to the valleys, to the streams, to the forsaken city. And you almost can see. And then he says, why? Because my people are at hand to come. I have to leave a lot out here, so I get my 30 minutes and 55 seconds in. So, now what about the Jews who came back? Like I said, the majority came from the Soviet Union. They were all communist educated. And of the 38 signatures of the Declaration of Independence, I think there were only about 5 or 6 that were not from the former Soviet Union. Now, something happened here in Ezekiel 36. Listen to that. In verse 26, a new heart will I give you, and a new spirit will I put in you, within you. And I will take away the stony heart out of your flesh, and I will give you a heart of flesh. Note very carefully, a new spirit. The Jews in Israel cannot be compared to the Jews in the diaspora. They are totally different. And there's something very peculiar. And you have noticed that when we talked to, Victor talked, some agitating questions were asked about, politically. No, he didn't want to have nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. You know what's missing in Israel? And that's present here in the church? Hate. The Israelis don't hate. As a matter of fact, it's the only armed forces in the world that tells the soldiers not to kill, not to hate. The only army in the world. Now, when we say army in Israel, that means Navy and Air Forces, all army. That means military. Just a little bit of advice so you know next time. So, but that's not all. God is not finished with Israel, because we read a little bit further in verse 27, and this is yet to come. I will put my spirit within you. Not the new spirit now. Now my spirit within you, and cause you to walk in my statutes, and ye shall keep my judgment and do them. That's yet to come. And if he fulfilled the first part, he will fulfill the second part. And What was the reason? The major contributing reason for the Jews to come to the land of Israel was persecution. And several of the preachers have already mentioned that very clearly and documented that. Persecution. They had to have a country to call their own. They had to have a passport that is an Israeli passport. And that they have now. And the whole world, more or less, is against it. Don't fool yourself that when Putin declared West Jerusalem as the capital city of the Jewish state, and then 8 months later Trump followed in the footsteps and also declared Jerusalem the capital city of the state of Israel. But that only means the West capital, the West Jerusalem. And it will not change very much in the future, I believe. But still, it's something at least one step ahead. So I will, it's always the reason God will do it. He don't care about the politicians. He don't care about the most powerful people in the world. He don't even care about those super rich financiers and bankers. They are nothing to him. He just overlooks them. He does his own thing. And his own thing is to call his people back to their land and renew them and save them and make them a blessing to all the people on the face of the earth. That's his goal. And that's why the enemy is so vehemently against it. What is the devil? What is he trying to do? What is the devil trying to do? Now, some people say the devil is trying to rule the world. I don't think so, because he already does. He is the God of the world. I think we don't realize the seriousness of our lostness without Christ. We somehow think we have a little bit of a holy land. We are not so bad. We are a Christian country. We have Christian principles. Doesn't mean a thing. The devil loves Christian principles, but he does not love when you are born again through the Spirit of God and become a light and become salt on earth. He hates that. And that he tries to extinguish our light and dull our salt. That's what he's trying to do. And then one more thing he is trying to do, and that is, it's going to come, and we heard it about on Revelation. He wants to what? He wants the world to worship him as God. And in order to do so, he must be very successful. That's why our living standard of living is getting up and up and up and up and up. Think about the United States in 1900. The average life expectancy was 43 years. Today, U.S. life expectancy is not as far as the Europeans or Japan, but still 78. That's a tremendous difference. When I came in 65, I remember I worked for a union company in Cincinnati, laying bricks. And the foreman, he was a Catholic, he had about 5 or 6 kids. And what he did, every year he went for 10 days vacation. And he told us, he says, Arne, those kids, when we drive out of our driveway, Daddy, close the window. So everybody thinks we have air conditioning. They had no air conditioning. They wanted to show off, looking out the window, waving the kids. Yeah. We didn't have no air conditioning. Who had air conditioning in 65? Can I see a hand here? Then whoever had that is very rich. I got to go after him or her. Oh, I forgot all about it. I was going to take up the offering, okay? Remind me, Joel. Don't forget. So anyhow, it's the I will of God. I will. And I looked up in the Bible, in the computer, 5,729 times is the I will. Now, my thinking was, when I studied this just a little bit, when did that start, that the Jews wanted to go back to the promised land? Did it start with Herzl, Theodor Herzl, when he in 1897 held the first World Zionist Congress in Basel, Switzerland? No, there were a lot of other people before too. And the one I found there in Wikipedia is probably your great-great-grandfather, Rabbi Zev Hirsch Kalischer. You know him. I mean, you know of him, yeah. An Orthodox leader who published a widely circulated book in 1862 and that endorsed Jewish resettlement in the land of ancient Israel and traveled to several German cities to help spark the information and colonization of the land. So slowly and surely, it's not all of a sudden that happened. It doesn't happen. Slowly. All those founding fathers, so-called, they're all dead. They were all dead long before Israel was actually declared a free, independent nation. The first Zionist, like I said, the first Zionist Congress was in 1897. I need some water, I guess. Come on, Joel, do something for your old daddy. Thank you. Handing a glass of water, a cup of water to a saint will be rewarded in heaven. Yeah, Theodor Herzl. He was an atheist. And in Wikipedia.org, I read this following. In the book Der Judenstaat, or the Jewish state, quote, I believe that a wondrous generation of Jews will spring into existence. The Maccabeans will rise again. Let me repeat once more my opening words. The Jews who wish for a state will have it. If you wish it, you will have it. We shall live at last as free men on our own soil and die peacefully in our own homes. The world will be freed. The world, listen to it, the world will be freed by our liberty. Salvation comes from the Jew, although he does not believe. Enriched by our wealth, magnified by our greatness. And that's a man who did nothing. He didn't know anything about the land of Israel. He was there a couple of times, but that's it. But he was a man who zusammengefasst, wie heißt es now? Articulated. He articulated the words in the language the Jews could understand. And whatever we attempt there to accomplish for our own welfare will react powerfully and beneficially for the good of humanity. Isn't that, it's not self-centered, but notice, it's always, he knew that's given, that's the new spirit. That's the new spirit. He saw that it's going to be, Israel is going to be a tremendous blessing. So, just a few minutes more. I got a list here of the first, then in 1882, that's before the first World Congress, Zionist Congress was held, to 93, there was the first, a large-scale immigration, mainly from Russia. And then the second Aliyah, that is the return of the Jews to the Promised Land, 1904 to 1914, second Aliyah, mainly from Russia and Poland. What did they do when they got there? They built a kolkhoz. You know what a kolkhoz is? Kolkhoze? It's kibbutz, communist system. Nobody owns nothing, everybody owns everything. Just like American military or any military. That's a communist system. We don't like to do that, to say that, it's terrible. But that's true. If you don't own it, if the tank you drive, you don't own it. But any you do own, then, that's the way. One for all and all for one. So then the first kibbutz, the Ganya, in 1909. And then an all-Jewish city, Tel Aviv, was founded in that year. And can you imagine, they come out there, there was nobody to help them. Yes, there was Rothschild, and there was many rich American Jews who sponsored them and who bought land and Jewish foundation. But actually, nobody really was interested in helping the Jews. God did it through the hand and through the thinking of the communists. Amazing, isn't it? Let's see here. The third Aliyah, again, mainly 1919 to 1923, mainly from Russia. 1920, Histadrut, the General Labor Federation, and the Haganah was founded. And even when the state was founded, the largest, Ben-Gurion, his party, the party flag showed very clearly hammer and sickle. Yeah. Fourth Aliyah in 1924 to 1932, mainly from Poland. Fifth Aliyah, 1933 to 1939, mainly from Germany, because they were persecuted. Jabotinsky was one of those who warned, get to Israel, get to the land of the Bible, get back there. He warned them, and he warned them. And many Jews said, oh no, come on, Germany is a sophisticated country. They are thinkers, they are very free people. Just the opposite happened. The greatest murder in all history took place in that country. So until this day, and then, lately somebody already said 1 million Jews came. They came from all over the world, mainly from the former Soviet Union bloc. And look what they did today. It's just amazing. Who was in Israel lately? Anybody? You didn't go? Don't you go to Israel? Hey, book this man. Book him. He goes to churches. Yeah, you should go and take a tour. Every month a tour to Israel. I mean, it's amazing. And from year to year when you go there, it's always, wow, how did they do that? And of course they complain. The Jews complain. Oh my. Oh, it's so bad there. Oh my. Yeah. The Jews. The food was great, thank you. Okay. So let me just practically conclude, but just give me a few items here from Wikipedia, which I looked in regard to the Declaration of Independence. And there were 38 signatures, and of those 38, all came from the former Soviet Union, and all were communist educated except one born in Israel, 3 in Germany, 1 in Denmark, and 1 in Yemen. God uses totally different ways. If he would have used the Orthodox Jews, who have their uniform with their head and their beards and all that, but, oh my, yeah. No. He does it opposite, and nothing there. Then there was a problem. Just before the Declaration of Independence, there was a problem. You know what those few religious Jews who were there, what was that? Rabbi Shapiro and Yehuda Leib Manon. They said, hey, wait a minute, we have to have in the Declaration of Independence God's name in there. And the rest of them said, no way, we don't want no God's name in it. And then, let me read this here. A major issue over the inclusion of God in the last section of the document, with the draft using the phrase, and placing our trust in the Almighty. The two rabbis, Shapiro and Yehuda Leib Manon, argued for the inclusion, saying it should not be omitted, with Shapiro supporting the wording God of Israel, or the Almighty and Redeemer of Israel. It was strongly opposed, and the members of the secularist Mapan party, and in the end the phrase was added, Rock of Israel, which could be used to be interpreted to referring to the God of Israel or the land of Israel. Ben-Gurion said, quote, "Each of us in his own way believes in the rock of Israel as he conceives it." And it's on still today. It's the rock. It's not God. So you see how the communist philosophy has penetrated the very beginning of Israel's existing, the new modern existed. But God can do, it's raining. Now what is it? Okay, good. I'm glad you are smart. All right. Yeah, and then there was a 16 o'clock, or as you call it, 1600. Ben-Gurion opened the ceremony by banging his gavel on the table, prompting a spontaneous rendition of Hatikvah, the national anthem, soon to be Israel's national anthem for the 250 guests. And then here, after the Declaration of Independence, we know that the War of Independence started. And here it says, 11 minutes after the Declaration of Independence was signed, President Truman de facto recognized the State of Israel, followed by Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi of Iran. Iran wouldn't do that today. Which had voted against the partition. Then in the Soviet Union, now President Truman reluctantly supported it, and I have where is that? I had it here. I got the top secret, that's the recognition of Israel. The government of America, top secret. So the Soviet Union did the opposite. They immediately, 2 days later, they declared that they exchanged ambassadors and officially recognized the Jewish state. And that was followed by Poland, Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, Ireland, and South Africa. The United States then extended official recognition after the first Israeli election, as President Truman promised, on 21st of January 1949. Again, about 9 months later, just like the recognition of Jerusalem today. So this is amazing. I find this fascinating, that God uses different means and different people to get his target done with Israel. In January 1948, Jewish preventative were sent to Ben-Gurion to meet the General Lubik Slobaba, the Minister of National Defense, to send the first contract for Czech military aid. 4 transport routes were used to Palestine, all via communist countries. The northern route via Poland and the Baltic Sea, the southern route via Hungary, Yugoslavia, and the Adriatic Sea, via Hungary. Yeah. So all of this was done by the Soviet Union. United States had an arms embargo against Israel, although it didn't exist yet. And at first the Skymaster, Skymaster, American plane, was, departed from the U.S. to help ferrying weapons to Palestine from Europe, but was forced by FBI to return to the USA. By the end of May, the Israeli army had absorbed some 20,000 Czech rifles, 2,800 machine guns, and over 27 million rounds of ammunition. 2 weeks later, an additional 10,000 rifles and 1,800 machine guns and 20 million rounds of ammunition arrived. What would the Jews have done without the help of the communists? Oh, God would have taken care of it. But it's interesting that they are the ones who initiated the help of the Jewish people at that time. Oh, I could read a lot more, but I don't want to do it, man. I'm getting tired. But I wanted to do one thing, just one thing. I wanted to see what they did when they shot down. Now I can't find it. You're making me nervous. Don't look at me now. Oh yeah, I like this here. January 7th, 1949, the Israeli Air Force consisted of several Spitfires and Czech-built Messerschmitt Bf-109 fighters, transferred secretly from Czech to Israel, shot down 5 British-piloted Spitfires flying for the Egyptian Air Force over Sinai, and causing a major diplomatic embarrassment for the British government. Now, these pilots were well trained. The British pilot, they had war experience and everything. And look at those Jews, they just jump into this plane, and they were a rattling plane that wasn't even built properly together, shot every one of those planes out. Now, don't tell me that's not God. Don't tell me that's God. Yeah, that's what God is doing. And I'm going to close just to emphasize the I will of God. When you read the minor prophets, or the major or two, but I'm just going to read from the minor prophets. Hosea 14 verse 4. I will heal their backsliding. I will love them freely, for mine anger is turned away from him. Doesn't that remind us on us? God died while we were yet sinners. But Judah, and Joel 3 verse 20, not you, Joel, the book. But Judah shall dwell forever, and Jerusalem from generation to generation. Next verse, for I will cleanse their blood, that I have not cleansed, for the Lord dwelleth in Zion. And then Amos says, in Amos 9 verse 15, and I will plant them upon their land, and they shall no more be pulled up out of their land, which I have given them, saith the Lord thy God. That's what is happening in our days. What happened 70 years ago. But God takes care of his people. And he will take care of his church. And I'm 100% aiming on your message. But there are still hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of true Christians in the United States who love the Lord. Jesus is building his church. When we build the church, then we get to numbers and successes and how many we got in Sunday school, and wow, next time we have 5 more, and well, praise the Lord. Jesus, in the Acts of the Apostles, when you read, it says each time, and God added to the church. And in conclusion, I would like to ask that you pray for Israel. Pray for the Church of Jesus Christ globally, not in America. The Church of Jesus Christ is global. It's the real global movement the world has ever known. And we are perfectly one in Christ. And that's precisely what Satan wants to copy. And that's why he is making this world so successful and so luxurious that we forget from where we come from. We become more and more independent of God. In Holland, in the Netherlands, and in many other countries now, they grow food, vegetables, without the sunshine, without rain, without earth. More and more independence of God. Remember 30, 40 years ago when I said, the world is going to be overpopulated. We're going to have no food. Now we are producing so much food that we are throwing away almost 40%, not only in the States, but in Europe and even in Africa. It's simply wasted and thrown away. Man is doing his own thing, thinking he can be independent of God, but he is not satisfied. And that's what the devil knows. And he will create a new religion, and all people on earth will love him. All that are on the face of the earth, the Bible tells us, will worship him, whose names are not written in the Lamb's Book of Life. That's yet to come.